I feel like it has been a long time, probably because it has. Too long, because I love talking to Brian Geisinger about hoops or about anything, because we could talk about soccer too. Brian Geisinger, who is all over the place, including Split the Action on Substack. And you, sir, were at Cameron Indoor Stadium last night for the Blue Devils exhibition against Central Florida. I'm old enough to remember when exhibitions were against, like, Division II schools. Now we're just going, they're letting us do it, so we're going to play big-time schools. And I don't know if that Central Florida would fit that category, but going to Tennessee this weekend certainly does. So let's get into what we saw last night, or what you saw last night. Broad brush, what you saw last night.
Well, yeah, Central Florida, Big 12 team, so power program here. It's still getting used to that one, including like seeing the jersey patch last night.
Right.
But yeah, I was explaining this recently, like the way exhibition games have changed, even just in the span of the last like 5-6 years, is kind of crazy, and it feels like it's only going to go more in this direction. But yeah, on hand for Duke last night, first time back in Cameron for a while. And I mean, I think you have to start with at the top with the Cam Boozer show.
Right.
A ridiculous performance from him. 33 points in 31 minutes, 12 of 19 from the floor, 4 of 7 from deep, 12 rebounds, 6 on the offensive glass, 4 assists, positive assist to turnover ratio. And honestly, he could have had more assists because he had a couple of those outlets to Nick Kamenia later in the game that turned into fouls, not layups,
right.
too. So he was phenomenal. But the footwork, the hands, the passing, the versatility, the green light shooting touch from every spot on the floor, and just all the different ways. Duke used him in like 15 different ways last night. He played both sides of the pick and roll. They used him as a cutter in their high post passing game. They used him as a facilitator, their high post passing game. He got loose, for trail threes on the break. He kickstarted the fast break with outlet passes. He was phenomenal. And overall, I think the effort from Duke wasn't like their best. And we could maybe talk about some guys that didn't have like an A+ game necessarily, but Boozer was phenomenal. And I think Duke, at least for the first, maybe 8 minutes of the game plus the second half, played pretty well. It was that middle chunk. They looked a little out of sorts with Central Florida also having some hot shooting from the mid-range.
Brian Geisinger is joining us at bgeis_bird on Twitter. So the inevitable comparison is going to come up because Boozer obviously is multi-talented and he's going to be a high NBA draft pick. My assumption is in June. So the comparisons to Cooper Flagg are going to happen. So I'm just curious, describe the difference between the two players and how Cam Boozer, whose dad, by the way, is a decorated Duke Blue Devil in Carlos, describe like how is what's the mission to handle all of the comparisons?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Duke really does. Just going back, even just over the last decade, the they have one of these guys. It seems like every year, just sort of these like roving mismatch, lottery pick,
right.
Mismatched guys in the front court. You could just in the last decade, Brandon Ingram, Jason Tatum, Zion, Marvin Bagley,
Paulo Banchero,
a little bit different than Caro, Cooper.
Yeah.
Flip wasn't a lottery pick, but he probably should have been. He had a nice rookie season with the Jazz, but yeah, I mean, I think they're going to use Cooper and Cam in some of the same ways. We literally saw it last night. Some of the same actions they're going to use to try to get those guys post-ups, and some of the pick-and-roll concepts are the same, including like playing those guys on both sides of the action, especially with the like empty corner sets. But he's, Cam is a sort of like a different player. I mean, I would say he's like probably a better jump shooter than Cooper,
right.
Although Cooper obviously has made incredible strides as a shooter. If you're looking for a comp, he's sort of like modern Kevin Love, kind of like with the outlet passes and the rebounding and the hands and the footwork and the shooting. But there's like, maybe some Al Horford sort of like bits in it too. I mean, those are two Hall of Fame players most likely. So that's kind of a maybe those are like lofty comparisons, but I think he has a lot of tools that are coming from the toolboxes of those two guys. And like the footwork is just, exceptional. And some of the comps you want to get into with that feel like, a little irresponsible to comp anyone to like, Tim Duncan. So we need to slow down a little bit here.
Right.
I'll just say like modern Kevin Love, I think is sort of like a good comp for him. And he's not like an amazing, like speedy nuclear athlete, but he's strong. He's super fluid. He's got great balance. And again, his footwork, court mapping and hands are all like, really A+. So he was terrific last night. And I mean, if the offense wasn't good enough, he got beat on back cuts a couple of times,
Okay.
but he was also switching out 1 through 5 and guarding every position for Central Florida and, controlling the defensive glass. So he was pretty special last night.
Brian Geisinger is joining us here. He was at Cameron Indoor Stadium for Duke's 25-point win or 26-point win over Central Florida last night. It's good to see Johnny Dawkins back. Mike Krzyzewski bowed down to him. He was the first of those recruits that helped pave the way for what we have now, which is an endless cycle of future NBA superstars that come through Cameron Indoor Stadium. Let me just ask you real quick about Cam's brother, Caden, who did not start, but, based on what I followed off of social media, there's, I think, a lot of high expectations for him. What is he as a point guard? And do you want to comp him to Tyus Jones?
I think there's some. I mean, with like the transition, like hit-ahead passing,
right?
There are some, Tyus comps. He's probably the best hit-ahead guy they've had since then, along with maybe since Trey Jones. I guess I would say if you want to,
okay,
bring it a little bit closer. Wendell Moore Jr. was pretty good at that kind of like transition, connective passing. Obviously Cooper too, but. I think Caden, I thought defensively is sort of like where he struggled at the point of attack. You could see Riley Kugel got him a couple of times on some, crossover rejections, where he kind of allowed his guy to get in the paint, but he's got good size and strength at the point guard position. I think the jump shot is certainly going to be like a swing skill for him. He was 1 of 3 from last night. It's got a little bit of a hitch in it. It's not the quickest release. Like that is something he'll have to iron out, whether that's this year in Durham or, moving into the NBA. But he's a really good guard prospect. I would sort of like stop short of, giving him like the elite,
right.
grade but I think he's, we'll certainly give him pretty safely like a first round grade as a prospect. His strength, I thought he had a couple of like open floor drives that were pretty good as well too. And he looked good when I saw him back in August at like the scrimmages that Duke held. And I thought he played phenomenal at that. Just like the court mapping, the decision making, the unselfishness, like it was all really good. And I think if you want to like further comp him to the Jones brothers, like it is the sort of like, floor general, maybe not like quite like pure point, but just like the sort of the willingness to like pass the ball, get off the ball, cut, move, relocate. And given how much Duke's going to like flow through the high post with Boozer, with Gongba, and Lee Brown, they need Caden to be able to like to be willing to like cut and move and relocate, and he fits that profile nicely.
I do want to because I laughed when I said it. Tyus Jones is, to me, he's a Duke legend because he made more big shots than anybody since Bobby Hurley did. Tyus Jones was, to me, a next-level college basketball player. Brian Geisinger, we only have a couple more minutes left. So I know they didn't have Malik Brown. They didn't have Dame Sarr, two big parts of what will be a defensive lineup for Duke. They'll both be on the court, I'm sure, together a ton. But if you could, Nick Kamenia is, he's not Con Knipple, but a lot of people will say, oh, he's just like he'll be, the Con Knipple to Cooper Flagg alongside Can Boozer. What kind of player is he?
He's a really good player. I watched every game, every minute he played this summer for Team USA at FEB U19, and that's not like a perfect, sort of like competition to scout a player in, but he was really good as sort of like a, super sub, versatile forward off the bench for Tommy Lloyd and the team that won every game and won the gold medal. And you could see last night, I thought he was awesome last night. I know he didn't shoot it well, but his rebounding, his defensive versatility, guarding different positions, being like a helpful backline guy, just sort of like, filling gaps, plugging holes, and then his willingness to sort of like get out and run. You can tell he's got like a connection with the Boozer brothers, sort of like running those fly patterns as those guys are outletting in transition. The drives were good, and like he can shoot. And he's a guy. I'm not sure if he had any. I don't think he had any assists last night, but he had several potential, connective plays that like if the shot goes in, it turns into an assist. He was outstanding, and like if he's willing to give them that type of like two-way production this season, it doesn't sort of like solve some of like Duke's biggest question marks, because I do think that lies with like Caden Boozer, Caleb Foster at the sort of like the lead guard spot.
Right.
But it would help a lot from a playmaking standpoint and lineup versatility standpoint. So Kamenia he's a great player, and I've been bullish on him since the summer, and last night just sort of like reaffirmed my high opinion of his game.
All right, final question for Brian Geisinger, and I'm not saying that last year's Duke team could be bullied or pushed a little bit, but is this team stronger, maybe more physical than last year's team was? Sion James notwithstanding, because that guy could have played tight end. But is this Duke team maybe a little bit more physical?
I think there's a little bit. They're definitely like with the starting 4-5 of Cam Boozer and Patrick Gongba. It's definitely like wider than where Duke was last year with Cooper and Kaman. Although if you've seen Malawach recently, he definitely put on some muscle between the draft and the start of the season for the Suns, which is great for him. So I think they're sort of like more sturdy and wide, and a little bit more like sort of like willing to like deliver and absorb contact. But I do think they're going to miss the sort of like the above the rim component that Flagg and Malawach provided last season. And Kaman's willingness to like screen roll, dive, give himself up on the roll and let force the defense to rotate to take away the lob or whatever. Like Duke does even with sort of like an athletic 5 like Malik Brown off the bench, he's not really like an above the rim guy in the way that like Malawach was, with that wingspan and his ability to get off the ground too. So I do think Duke's going to have to sort of compensate for that a little bit, because they just don't have the guy that's like they don't have the vertical spacing threat they did with Malawach last season. But Boozer and Gongba, their size, their strength, and not just that they're like bullies, their skill level is super high. Both are really good passers, and Gongba did not have a good game against Central Florida, but he was a stud in a limited sample for Duke last season. So if you can extrapolate that out for a year, he and Boozer are going to be a really dynamic 4-5 duo. But I do think they're going to miss that sort of like lob component that was such a big deal under Shire with both Malawach and then a couple of years ago too with Derek Lively.
Yeah, Derek. I was having flashbacks to the year after Derek Lively, coming to grips with Duke doesn't have one of those anymore. And Lively, of course, had some injury issues, but by the end of the year, we all knew what he was about. Brian Geisinger, my man, I appreciate your time. Split the Action on Substack. Go check it out. We'll talk again very soon, sir.
Sounds good. Take care.